Hello, my name is Adam Ritzak, and welcome to the Magnet Culture through Transformational Leadership webinar, where I will serve as today's moderator. For those unfamiliar with HealthLinx solutions, we help organizations achieve operational nursing excellence through leadership solutions and our nursing excellence assessment and plan and project management. Before we get started, I'd like to run through a few logistics. First, this event is being recorded, and we will send you a link to the recording within the next day. We are streaming the audio portion, so please turn up your speakers and close any open applications. You can also access the audio portion of the webinar by phone by calling the number listed on your webinar invitation. I have muted everyone to make it easier to listen. We encourage you to participate with questions, polls, and comments throughout. You can use the question and answer panel in your GoToWebinar player to share at any time during the webinar. Finally, you can go to the handout section of your GoToWebinar player to find the PDF file of today's slides available for download. With that said, I would like to introduce our featured speaker for today. Kristen Whitehead has 27 years of healthcare experience in pre-hospital, emergency, critical care services, Magnet, and executive leadership. She has extensive knowledge and experience as a Magnet program director and in clinical business operations, including performance improvement, customer satisfaction, revenue productivity enhancement, cost reduction, throughput patient flow, and human resources. She is a proven leader with intense focus on building positive physician relationships, cultivating staff engagement, and leading change. Kristen is board certified as a nurse executive through the American Nurses Credentialing Center, and she is a member of the Texas Emergency Nurses Association and the North Texas Organization for Nurse Executives. And now, here's Kristen Whitehead with today's Magnet presentation.
So thank you, Adam. So good afternoon to everyone, or good morning maybe to some of you that are coming to us from Pacific Standard Time. It is an absolute pleasure to be with you today. We're going to discuss a very important topic among nursing departments and healthcare organizations across the United States. How do we create, or how do leaders create and sustain magnet culture? How do you capture the energy that is so characteristic of a magnet designation and maintain it year after year? Well, at the conclusion of this webinar, you should be able to define and discuss transformational leadership, describe the characteristics of a magnet organization and magnet culture, and discuss the role of the transformational leader in creating and sustaining magnet culture. So before we move on, I want to learn a little bit more about who's in our audience today. So if you would, please take a moment to answer the poll question, which we've launched already, regarding your current role within your organization. Please select one. It could be CNO, Magnet Program Director, Pathway to Excellence Program Coordinator, or Clinical or Direct Care Nurse, or even other. And I'll just give you a few moments to answer. Okay, wonderful. So we've got a little bit of everything, with the exception of a Pathways to Excellence Program Coordinator, but I'm thrilled to have you all. I think you'll all find this helpful and highly applicable to your organization and for your own leadership development. So I certainly hope you enjoy. We welcome you all. So before we move on, I wanted to just give you a little bit more information about my roles in leadership in Magnet. In one organization, I had the opportunity to work as a force leader for an initial designation in the 2000s. If you all recall, Magnet used to be modeled around forces. After that point, I was elevated to the Magnet Program Director role for the organization's first redesignation, and upon application, the facility went straight to site visit and were successfully awarded with redesignation. We are very proud. While I was the MPD, I had additional roles within the organization, as many of you do. I had the oversight of multiple areas, including but not limited to emergency services, ICU, nursing administration, and trauma services, and I oversaw day-to-day clinical operations as the Associate Chief Nursing Officer. So lots of hats, as many of you wear as well. I was a CNO at another organization after that, and I'm, of course, presently part of the great team at HealthLinx. And I'm completing my doctorate of nursing practice with a focus on executive nursing leadership through Texas Christian University. In fact, I graduate in a couple of months, and I just got my defense scheduled for my doctoral project at the end of March, so I'm very excited about that. But I also want to share with you that my doctoral project is actually about transformational leadership and its impact on safety, culture, outcomes, and nurse satisfaction, and I have particular interest in development of the nurse manager towards transformational leadership style, as they really are the most impactful on their direct reports regarding satisfaction and even the emotional experiences of their employees. So I would love to hear some great tips or tricks that you and or other transformational leaders in your organization have used to create and sustain magnet culture. Please feel free to add those into the question panel, and then at the end of the session, we'll share them with the entire audience. Add your name and your organization if you'd like. So let's go ahead and dig in here. What does it take to be a transformational leader? So let's begin by talking about transformational leadership. We'll define the concept, we'll discuss some important facts and reveal components of transformational leadership, along with attributes of the transformational leader that can be linked to increase nurse job satisfaction, and secondarily to improve safety, outcomes, and culture. So what is transformational leadership? Well, don't be intimidated by the length of this definition. The concept is really easy and intuitive for nurses because it really appeals to our higher sense of purpose, which is helping others. I chose it because Langston University did such a great job and provided such a compelling definition and description of transformational leadership. Now, I'm not usually the kind a slide reader, if you will, but I'm going to read this aloud because I think it's very impactful. So transformational leadership is designed as a leadership approach that causes change in individuals and social systems. In its ideal form, it creates valuable and positive change in the followers with the end goal of developing followers into leaders. Enacted in its authentic form, transformational leadership enhances the motivation, morale, and performance of followers through a variety of mechanisms. These include connecting the follower's sense of identity and self to the mission and collective identity of the organization, being a role model for followers that inspires them, challenging followers to take greater ownership for their work, and understanding the strengths and weaknesses of followers so the leader can align followers with tasks that optimize their performance. So it's quite a mouthful, but I think it's a very powerful definition. So transformational leadership actually was initially named transforming leadership. It was originated by James McGregor Burns in 1978 to describe political leaders, but it quickly gained momentum in organizational psychology. Burns notes that leadership is distinguished by specific characteristics and traits, and he actually envisioned the concepts of transactional leadership, i.e. laissez-faire, and transformational leadership as opposite ends of the leadership spectrum. Transformational leadership was further developed by Bernard Bass in 1985 into the current understanding that we know today, and it includes the 4 key components: idealized influence, individual consideration, inspirational motivation, and intellectual stimulation. Pardon me. Transformational leadership style is the subject of vast literature both within and outside of the nursing profession. It's actually inspired nursing leaders and, for that matter, leaders in other industries as well all over the world. It was adopted by the Magnet Recognition Program, as many of you all know, in 2008. And now transformational leadership is really the foundation of our nursing leadership practice, and it's embraced by many reputable nursing organizations, most notably the American Organization of Nurse Executives. So I put this table on here just to give you a sense of the components of transformational leadership and the corresponding leader attributes and behaviors, so that makes it a little easier to understand. Idealized influence is the component of transformational leadership characterized by attributes of charisma, mentorship, supportive nature, and mission-driven approach, and it really represents the cornerstone of the supervisor and supervisee relationship. In fact, particular focus is placed on this component because it really contributes greatly to a mutually trusting milieu. In 2014, Yang told us that mutual trust between leader and subordinate transmutes into increased nurse job satisfaction and serves as a mediator between leadership style and employee satisfaction. So trust between leader and employee actually serves as a mediator. Component 2, inspirational motivation, views the leader as a motivator. Component 3, intellectual stimulation, encourages leaders to question the status quo and foster change through process-focused management of problems and solutions. And then finally, component 4, individual consideration, reminds leaders to ensure connection with individual employees by promoting their personal interests, talents, and autonomy. So as you look through this list of characteristics, does it remind you of any leaders that you've worked with now or in the past? Does it remind you of yourself? Well, as many of you all know, being a nursing leader is a very difficult job. In fact, once transformational leadership is embraced as the preferred leadership style, the challenges and complexities of healthcare make consistent practice very difficult. Looming budgets and quality targets really dominate our attention, and the nurse leader often descends into a world of deadlines and compliance. I bet this sounds familiar for many of you. In reality, creating a transformational and highly satisfied workforce through transformational leadership lends itself to improved quality, better outcomes, and enhanced safety culture. Ironically, in the nurse leader's quest to be dutiful, he or she may actually neglect the relationships with the very people who will foster greater organizational success, the nursing staff. So with this in mind, no task is of greater importance than developing oneself through a leadership style that by definition commands development of those in the periphery, i.e. the frontline direct care nursing leader. So I hope I have you thinking about your own leadership approach and your role in making positive culture happen at your organization. I also hope that you'll take some time after this presentation or sometime in the near future while it's fresh in your mind to make a plan on how you're going to develop yourself as a transformational leader and how you're going to put strategies and tactics in place to cultivate magnet culture in your organization and or area of purview. I'm going to talk in a few slides about some practical approaches you can incorporate, but having a formal plan is extremely important. So what is the role of transformational leadership in Magnet? Well, let's talk a little bit about the Magnet journey, what being Magnet is all about, and then we'll tie it all together. But first I want to do another quick poll. So if you would, turn your attention to the poll that's just been published there. What is your current Magnet status? Are you Magnet designated? Are you on the journey? Are you considering the journey? Or are you undecided? And I'll give you a moment to answer. Just another moment here. Okay, and there's the results. So about 40%, 39% of you are Magnet designated. Another good 38% are on the journey, 17 are considering the journey, and 7 are undecided. So enter a great group of people. Hopefully we'll help those undecided folks maybe make some decisions today with this presentation. So great to have such a variety in the group. So there's so many advantages to being a Magnet organization. So first and foremost, we know that Magnet hospitals are recognized for improved nurse and patient outcomes, both in quality and satisfaction. But some particularly significant patient outcomes include lower readmission rates, and perhaps the most important, the ultimate outcome, is lower mortality rates. Of course, these improved outcomes lead to reduction of costs that demonstrate that the benefits far outweigh the initial or ongoing cost of designation. And many of you that are taking the journey may need some help in making that business case, and I assure you the literature is out there to support it. Magnet is highly recognized in the community and the healthcare quality groups such as the Joint Commission and Leapfrog, just to name a few, and provides designated organizations with a clear competitive advantage in their market. Nurses and Magnet organizations report better relationships among nursing and with their interdisciplinary colleagues, and as if all this isn't enough to convince you of the value, we know that Magnet organizations have a higher educated and certified nursing staff that produce greater scholarly output and nursing research, leading to the betterment of our profession. So very important stuff. So with much ado, here we are to talk about what is Magnet culture. So we're convinced that Magnet may be the way for us to go, but how do we define the very elusive concept of Magnet culture? Well, I can tell you the concept is not strongly discussed or defined in the literature per se, but we know the phenomenon exists. The approach to the definition is to sort of back in. In other words, we'll define Magnet culture through characteristics and themes that underpin nursing culture in a Magnet organization. They include quality and safety, so we're looking at stellar outcomes, relentless pursuit of quality and safety. Nursing excellence, are all the leaders and the staff rowing in the same direction towards improvement, and everyone knows and embraces their role in the excellence culture? And then innovation, does the culture support frontline staff identifying an issue and innovating solutions at the point of service? I actually had a CNO mentor tell me one time that positive culture is like the wind. You can't necessarily see it, but you can feel it all around you. So let's talk about each of these components just a little more detail. Quality and safety. So the ANCC 2014 Magnet Application Manual defines quality improvement as a systematic, data-guided activities designed to bring about immediate improvement in healthcare delivery. Those who live in the acute care world understand that safety and quality are king. It is an expectation in everything we do, just like showing up to work with our clothes on. Magnet organizations know that data drives results, which is why ANCC focuses on outcomes so heavily. A transformational leader knows their organizational data and their results. How can you steer a ship, right, if you don't understand the strengths and weaknesses in your care delivery systems or within other issues within your unit or service line? I actually worked with a chief medical officer who used to say, in God we trust, but everyone else must bring data. So know your information and share it with great transparency. Nursing excellence. So adapted from the ANCC Pathway Program overview, nursing excellence is comprised of a positive work environment where nurses excel. That's a rather simplistic look, right, at a big concept. It may include aspects of nurse satisfaction, empowerment, ongoing professional development. Excellence like quality and safety becomes a way of doing and being in the magnet culture. That's why when surveyors visit, they talk to many, many people. They look through copious amounts of documents, as many of you that's been on the journey before know. They are attempting to validate excellence in the culture. Anyone can write an application, but creating and living it are an entirely different animal, as many of you know. And then finally, innovation. So per the ANCC 2014 Magnet Application Manual, innovation is a novel set of behaviors, routines, and ways of working that are directed at improving health outcomes, administrative efficiency, cost effectiveness, or user's experience, and that are implemented by planned and coordinated actions. So innovation always stumps organizations during their magnet designation journey, but it's really pretty straightforward concepts. Think of how many times you as a nurse have said things like, I know how to solve XXX problem if they would just listen to me. In a magnet culture, transformational leaders aren't just listening, they are counting on frontline staff to innovate and implement at the point of service. Innovation is a result of the transformational leader creating a milieu of support and challenging status quo. So by way of example, one innovation I had the opportunity, or one innovation rather, that I had the opportunity to be a part of concerned STEMIs coming in via ambulance. So it used to be that they had to stop in the emergency department, get registered, get cared for by ED staff until they went to the cath lab. This was just the way it was done in ERs all over the place. Although ED staff got very quick at this, in fact, I think my personal record back in the day was something like 14 minutes in the ED, that was precious time and muscle. So at this organization, we partnered with admitting the cath lab physicians and even our EMS partners, and we created a process called the pit stop. It allowed STEMIs to literally walk, or I guess I should say ride, straight through the emergency department while the team of necessary people, including nursing, registration, etc., followed the patient to the cath lab and performed our duties around the stretcher. All we had to do to make this innovation work was to embrace the idea that ED nursing and triage is a process, not a place, and it can happen in an elevator if it expedites door-to-balloon times. The first patient beneficiary of this process had a door-to-balloon, not door-to-lab, but door-to-balloon time of under 16 minutes. It is a pretty amazing innovation to be involved with and actually resulted in saving a life. This is just an example of an innovation born from questioning the status quo using the components of transformational leadership. So I love this quote. I just had to include it. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's by the famed management consultant and author Peter Drucker. It isn't to say that strategy isn't important, but all the strategy in the world means nothing if you don't have the culture to support excellence. Strategy provides the map, but culture is the vehicle for getting around. Both important, but you can eventually get somewhere without a map. However, without a vehicle, it's nearly impossible. Love that quote. So we've talked a little bit about the extraordinary value of magnet, the positive impact of magnet culture, but through discussion about the magnet journey, we'll identify a key relationship that are really going to help us tie together magnet excellence, transformational leadership, and positive culture. So anyone who's been through the designation journey knows it's stressful and exciting and energizing all at the same time, especially for the nursing staff who are often the key beneficiary of the magnet culture. The journey is a transformative process. Most hospitals, rather magnet hospitals, are among the top 7% in the nation. Reaching that kind of milestone is a true high for all involved, but staff nurses are particularly feeling the positive effects. While Erden and Eckhoff completed a study in 2013 on the magnet journey and revealed themes of nurse empowerment involvement, also known as staff voice, enhanced professional development, improved professional relationships, increased support and resources, but most importantly, and I want you to really listen to this one, the first theme that emerged from the study on the magnet journey was improved relationships with leaders. The study additionally revealed a potential downside to the magnet process. The period of time after designation actually led to the coining of a term known as magnet slippage, intended to describe the disappointment experienced by staff after designation was achieved and all energy, involvement, and relationships digressed. The key takeaway is that of all the wonderful value of magnet, that staff first and foremost appreciated improved relations with the leaders and felt such disappointment with the decline post-designation survey that a term actually emerged in the literature to describe the phenomenon. That's very powerful. And it validates that leaders are a powerful and important part of nursing satisfaction. In other words, transformational leaders are critical to magnet culture. I know as a leader, I saw this again and again with staff. As a director, when I had managers who were highly engaged and demonstrated attributes of transformational leadership, it showed in virtually every outcome measured in hospitals today. Nurse satisfaction, patient satisfaction, outcomes all went up when leaders were engaged with staff in very specific ways that transformational leaders engage, through vision, mentorship, support, and challenging of the status quo. So I'm curious if any of you have examples of magnet slippage in your own organization, how you remedied that. If so, feel free to share those in the question panel, and we'll try to get to discussing them at the conclusion of the presentation. So now that we've discussed transformational leadership approach, we've identified some key components and associated behaviors and attributes, we've discussed characteristics of the culture of magnet organizations, and even identified the importance of the leader and staff relationship. Let's talk about the role of the transformational leader in creating and sustaining magnet culture. We'll deal with them separately. How do we bottle the energy that's produced during an initial or a redesignation, and as staff and leaders collectively drink it throughout the years between designations? If you're a nursing leader, the answer might actually lie within you. Engaging in your own journey to becoming more transformational as a leader is mission critical to engaging those around you. In fact, the development of leaders within the ranks is an extremely intentional side effect of transformational leadership. So creating magnet culture. So you develop magnet culture through cultivation of concepts that support its underpinnings. Now I've chosen a few for discussion on the next few slides, but it's not an exhaustive list by any means. Be involved in your professional organization, read nursing journals. Information is literally everywhere to develop your organization yourself for the better. So a concept conducive to magnet culture and therefore quality, safety, nursing excellence, and innovation is the healthy work environment. Healthy work environment is defined by the American Nurses Association as one that is safe, empowering, and satisfying. As you can see on the slide, I linked the concepts of healthy work environment back to the magnet culture components to demonstrate the point. The ANA goes on to highlight that the healthy work environment should have professionalism, accountability, transparency, involvement, efficiency, and effectiveness. All of these attributes sound like values shared by transformational leadership. Therefore, one can make the deduction that the importance of transformational leadership in fostering magnet culture. And because I don't want you to walk away saying this webinar used fancy words and buzzwords, I want to give you some practical tips for creating magnet culture through transformational leadership. These are just some examples. So it may be that you work on a work safety initiative relevant to your organization, such as ED safety in the triage area. This relates to the safety component of the healthy work environment and may be accomplished through the transformational leadership component of intellectual stimulation, where you engage the ED team to problem solve the ED security issue. Posting of quality and safety data and creation of nursing quality committees to discuss results and opportunities for improvement. This can relate to the quality component of the healthy work environment and exemplifies trust and transparency as called for in the transformational leadership component of idealized influence. Creation of shared governance structure within nursing services or revamping a stale structure. Fosters empowerment through the transformational leadership component of individualized consideration, where every nurse has a voice about important practice issues that impact them. And then developing our nurse managers towards transformational ability. We'll provide some practical tools for that at the end of this presentation, and I think you'll find, like I have, that it's extremely important to cultivate that group of nurse managers. So another way to describe magnet culture is through a reliable and valid instrument known as the Practice Environment Scale of the Nursing Work Index. Many of you have probably heard of it. It's often used in nursing research to validate 5 subscales of nursing excellence, including nurse participation in hospital affairs, nursing foundations for quality of care, nurse manager ability, leadership, and support of nurses, staffing and resource adequacy, and nurse-physician relationships. The instrument is endorsed by the National Quality Forum and, as I mentioned, has been used extensively in the literature and research. I'm actually suggesting, again, that we work our way backwards to understanding the components of magnet culture using the Practice Environment Scale tool as a method. If the nursing literature supports use of the practice environment tool as a way to measure the practice environment, then putting infrastructure in place that supports the 5 sub-skills will most assuredly result in stronger culture. So the takeaway from these 2 last slides is that magnet culture is comprised of quality and safety, nursing excellence, and innovation, and cultivating this culture is accomplished in a number of ways. We discussed some examples, including creation of the healthy work environment and a practice environment of excellence, and the 5 areas listed in the practice environment scale. So if you're already a magnet organization or if you started your journey, these ideas are familiar to you and you're likely working very hard to put supportive infrastructure in place, such as shared governance. But consider a gap analysis of your nursing services to determine which areas may need further development. Sometimes we miss things when we're too close to them. And consider magnet pathways if you're new on the journey so you can begin to lay that foundation for nursing excellence. As I promised, I like practical solutions and suggestions for improvement, so I highly recommend incorporating strategies and tactics associated with healthy work environment and the practice environment subscales into your nursing strategic plans. Have measurable goals, realistic tactics, and assign responsible parties. Make a formal plan. I know the quote said culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I still agree with that, but everyone needs a good breakfast. So have a plan. What's monitored is what's done. So creating is usually the fun and easy part. Well, I'll take that comment with a grain of salt because I do really understand that all of this work is complex and all the wins in nursing are typically pretty hard fought. Think about planning and having a great wedding. The wedding planning is fun. It culminates in this magic event, but the hard part is cultivating a lasting marriage. Likewise, magnet culture throughout the years between designation periods is a significant challenge for all organizations. You are not alone if you're struggling with sustainability. So sustainability is defined as the capacity to endure. It's highly dependent on consistent application of effort. Some critical success factors for transformational leaders to consider include maintaining the magnet steering committee work, celebrating nurses year-round, enhancing performance appraisals to support magnet priorities, and ensuring organizational agility to embrace change and diffuse innovations across your enterprise. So let's talk about each of these kind of individually. The magnet steering committee. Use this important committee to keep leaders and staff involved with improvement and each other. As an Associate Chief Nursing Officer, I made it a priority in my schedule to attend these meetings because leadership presence sends that strong message of support. I wasn't in the corner checking my phone or looking at my email. I was engaged and involved. Lean in. The steering committee is traditionally responsible for guiding the designation journey, involving staff from all over the organization so the collective voice of nursing resonates and produces support for change, growth, and forward momentum. But it shouldn't stop with designation. In fact, the real work of culture change begins and transformation happens in an ongoing manner. Transformational leaders inspire and motivate through idealized influence. Vartanian, Bobet, and Weiss in 2013 completed a study where they actually surveyed magnet and non-magnet nurses about sustainability of magnet culture. Very interesting study. While there was a wide recognition of the benefits of magnet, the magnet nurses did not agree that magnet positively impacted how nurses were treated. Now think about that for a moment. In the presence of other study findings that validated the magnet nurse perception of things like enhanced support, professional development opportunity, and shared governance, the finding that nurses didn't feel they were treated better in a magnet organization may suggest a lack of individual relational value of the nurse. In other words, are nurses feeling undervalued in their work relationships? What is the most important work relationship? Well, if you're thinking the relationship with the direct manager, you are absolutely correct. There is oodles of literature to support that idea. Is there an opportunity to cultivate the transformational leadership components of intellectual stimulation and individual consideration? You bet there are. Celebrating and recognizing. Let nurses know that they're valued all year. Find creative ways to empower and motivate through praise and valuation of individual effort. So just as you cultivate your own personal relationships with love and praise in an ongoing manner, staff really need that same attention. Inspirational motivation and individual consideration are powerful attributes for the transformational leader to leverage. Many organizations have honor walls to celebrate nurses for education, certification, general recognition, etc. But be warned, you have to keep them updated or they can have the opposite impact. I actually had an experience with this. I overheard some ED nurses talking one day around the honor wall and commenting on how old the information was, such as there was recognition of long since gone employees, certification plaques that weren't up to date, etc. I was just mortified. A transformational leader leaves no stone unturned, so assign someone responsible to keep that wall updated, or you might as well not do it at all. Performance appraisals. Ensure that appraisals include and support magnet components such as professional development, patient satisfaction, quality outcomes, and nurse and interdisciplinary communication. In one organization I worked in, we actually had a nursing leadership and HR retreat to revamp the content of our performance appraisals and the review process so we could ensure that we were using that time of year to really reinforce important magnet principles and organizational themes. Many of you have electronic performance management systems, but almost all that I've seen allow leadership to manipulate at least some of the content. A transformation leader always links performance back to the mission and vision and values of your organization. Continuous learning and development. So lifelong learning and relentless pursuit of excellence is just that. It's relentless pursuit. The phrase implies that this happens over time, and it should. The transformational leader supports individual development and achievement. Mentorship, an attribute of transformational leadership component of idealized influence, facilitates an atmosphere of continuous learning. In 2014, Frederick refers to a trusting triad that's created between a mentor, a mentee, and the larger organization, and discusses the potentiating effects of mentoring. Mentoring relationships permeate the organization over time, and they create a more positive and collaborative atmosphere conducive to high levels of nurse job satisfaction. When I was in executive nursing leadership positions, I was constantly in learning mode along with the nursing staff. I'm a longtime student. I told you I was about to complete my doctorate in nursing practice, and I often took or even taught nursing certification classes along with the staff. It was very powerful. It provided me with kind of street cred, if you will, to be a subject matter expert in their certification courses along with being a lifelong learning student just like them. So it gave me a lot of credibility. Organizational agility. I love this concept. Vartanian and Bobet and Weiss, 2013, they contend that the adaptability is the degree to which an organization is proactive and innovative and is an important part of sustaining magnet culture. So transformational leaders assure change and innovation are embraced through the transformational leadership component of intellectual stimulation with attributes of questioning status quo and agility in response to change. This can be accomplished quite simply by being the continuous voice on the administrative team for challenge and change. The only way to know what needs to be challenged and changed is to stay plugged into the collective voice of your staff. You can do this formally by attending committee meetings, formal rounds, or informally through a variety of mechanisms, but one is informal leadership roundings known as management by walking around. Informal rounds often gave me the most actionable information. Part of being agile is understanding the problems, but you must also have processes in place to respond to the change on the fly. So for example, one organization I worked in used the concept of the rapid cycle test for process improvement and for implementation of small changes that we identified through the Plan, Do, Study, Act, or PDSA process improvement methodology. And don't fret, you do not have to be an expert in PI. You can consult the experts for help. Your role as a transformational leader is to be present with open ears and then support them through the rapid change in response to the issues they've helped you identify. Perhaps consider taking an occasional shift as an admin supervisor. It's one of the greatest things I ever did. For example, I worked on New Year's Day as an admin supervisor. I wanted to give everyone a break, show them I was willing to roll my sleeves up and do it, and I learned a lot. It was a very humbling experience for me. I discovered in doing that the impact that abbreviated hours in the cafeteria on holidays had on those employees that were working on the holidays. I, for one, did not get to eat that day because it was closed by the time I was able to get to the cafeteria. So I took this concern to my fellow admin team members, and we actually agreed to amend the hours for staff on holidays. So because we were providing meals just for the staff only during those extended holiday hours, we could really do so with less cafeteria staff, so there wasn't really significant strain on the budget. It was something we were able to do quite easily. Don't forget to share successful practices that you have all had to sustain your culture between designations. Share them in the question panel, and we can discuss them at the end of the presentation. So I put this on here because I just wanted to help connect the dots. I've thrown a lot of stuff at you. I want you to think about the concepts underpinning magnet culture along with those sub-concepts conducive to magnet culture, such as healthy work environment, the subscales of the practice environment scale on the left of the table, and connect them to transformational leadership components and attributes on the right side of the table. it just makes sense when you think about it. So, for example, the magnet culture component of quality and safety is linked to healthy work environment, and the practice environment scale both have a component of this. Now look to the transformational leadership components and attributes that may lend themselves to enhanced quality and safety. So, example, idealized influence is the transformational leadership component associated with leader establishing trust. And we know that leadership trust is key to a just culture where quality and safety issues are identified and discussed openly. Discussed openly being the key. Intellectual stimulation supports teamwork and the challenging of status quo. Quality and safety culture is fostered by questioning how things are currently done, identifying opportunities for improvement, and making small improvements on the fly in support of an agile and innovative culture. So I hope you see that how this is all sort of fitting together. I'm not going to read off other examples, but take a moment to think about how using the components of transformational leadership can support stronger culture in your organization. Then take those ideas and parlay them into like strategies and finally develop those tactics and assign responsible persons. I know I've said this previously, but it is truly very important. Measure and post your results. I understand how hard and busy it is to be in a leadership role, but I really urge you to build a few hours into your calendar to make a plan for whatever is in your purview of leadership. The only bad move is the one you never took. So for the last few slides of the presentation, we're going to discuss the global role of the transformational leader and specifically the role of the executive leader, the nurse director, and last but most assuredly not least, the nurse manager. So we know the executive leader's role is one of oversight and support for infrastructure that leads to excellence. So they're really setting the tone for quality and safety, nursing excellence, and innovation by focusing on a safe, satisfying, and empowering environment. Integration of executive leaders, managers, and staff is absolutely key. In fact, one of the most important aspects of connecting these important groups is development of the person right in the middle of that trusting triad, the nurse manager. In fact, through my doctoral project work, I'm seeing a need for practical and hands-on tools to develop nurse managers towards transformational ability. They are perhaps your single most important human capital in all of nursing services because of their propensity to impact entire units of nurses. So we all have stories for when we started as a manager. And I know I got keys to an office, some older, outdated nursing textbooks, and good luck, pat on the back, and I went to work. Transformational leaders need to change this narrative. Directors, mentor your managers. It's one of the most important roles that you play, and we're actually going to explore it further here in a subsequent slide. So let's review the role of the transformational executive leader. McInerney and Robbins in 2014 described high-performance work practices as practices within organizations that enhance organizational outcomes by improving the quality and effectiveness of employee performance. High-performance work practices include engagement of employees, alignment of leaders, development of the workforce, and empowerment of the front lines. We're going to talk a little bit more individually about these in a second. The study also found conceptual linkages between high-performance work practices and the tenets of Magnet. In fact, using high-performance work practices is another way to back in, if you will, to the definition of Magnet culture and therefore cultivate it through transformational leadership at the executive leader level. So engaging your employees. First and foremost, communicating with a clear vision. It's reminiscent of inspirational motivation. Inspiring trust through transparency. For example, disseminating all your nursing quality data with great transparency. And we linked that earlier to the transformational leader attribute of idealized influence. Aligning your leaders. Transformational leadership should be practiced by all levels of leadership. This is very interesting. Studies reveal that nurse executives are more readily recognized by staff as being a transformational leader, but other leaders, and specifically the nurse manager, the direct nurse manager, are described as a transformational leader to a way lesser extent. So focus on that nurse manager role in particular because we know that they are the single most influential person on nurse satisfaction and unit outcomes. I found that study very fascinating. So transformational leadership is more readily identified in the executive level than at the direct manager level. Develop the workforce. Rigorous education requirements and professional development expectations create an environment of lifelong learning and are reminiscent of the individual consideration component of transformational leadership. Don't be afraid to set the bar high. Recruitment and retention activities should involve the frontline nursing staff. And then finally, empowering your front lines. Share governance. Shared governance is cultivated by intellectual stimulation component of transformational leadership, where we're cultivating teamwork and shared ideas. Two-way communication, it's the basis of shared governance, that information flow up and down the chain in kind of a never-ending cycle. And finally, another important role of the executive leader is to really create redundant communication that always ties everything back to the mission, vision, and values of the organization. Again, that articulated vision is an important attribute of a transformational leader. And finally, the last slide of the presentation, but certainly not the least important, there are multiple ways to develop the nurse manager. So first, I want you to look to professional nursing organizations, such as the American Organization of Nurse Executives, for existing programs. The AONE does have nurse manager competencies that can be accessed directly on their website, and they host a variety of educational sessions, and even developmental programs are available by application. Also examine the internal resources of your own organization. So many larger systems have extensive resources for leadership development, and you want to ensure that they embrace transformational leadership approach. I actually worked at an organization, I'm embarrassed to admit, for nearly a decade before I was aware that there was executive coaching services offered free of charge for the nurse manager level and above. So it's important to make sure that you're tapped into those resources and you know what's out there. Another important way to develop the nurse manager is to assign a director-level mentor that exemplifies transformational leadership attributes. Now, this may or may not be the nurse director that the manager reports directly to. In fact, there's probably value in going outside of that relationship. Nurse directors should role model transformational leadership through mentorship of the nurse manager, and in doing so, they're ensuring a connection with the individual manager by promoting their personal interests, talents, and autonomy. Cherry in 2015 contends that this is particularly important because we know that staff and leaders alike need to feel a sense of personal importance and identify as a unique contributor within their organization. And in an earlier slide, we discussed the work of Frederic in 2014 and the notion of a trusting triad that's created between the mentor, mentee, and the organization, and its potentiating effects of mentoring. Mentoring relationships are permeating that organization over time. They create a positive and collaborative atmosphere. They're conducive to high levels of nursing job satisfaction through transformational leadership. Finally, incorporating hiring practices, and this one's really important, that promote emotional intelligence as a core attribute and seek ways to develop emotional intelligence in your existing nursing manager group. There are many tools out there on the internet. There are companies who are certified and specialize in delivering of emotional intelligence testing and results. I know that it can be costly, but CNOs, when you do your budget, consider this important developmental tool for your nurse manager group. Just put it in the budget, and again, it can be costly, but I think it's so valuable and the return on investment will be great. I know I personally completed this testing, and I went into it thinking of myself as a very self-aware person, and I was actually blown away by the results. It made me a better person and leader. Also use the 360-degree appraisal tool. It can be very helpful in identifying areas for improvement as well, and extend that to your nurse manager level. Spanos-Leakley, Griffin, Clavel, and Fitzpatrick in 2016 completed a study that showed a link between high levels of emotional intelligence and transformational leadership in nurse managers. Formal education of the nurse manager is important as well. The study went on to find that nurse managers with a master's degree had higher scores for transformational leadership, as well as those who were certified in nursing administration. So don't forget to cultivate this critical role, and I think that you will see your outcomes absolutely transform. So in summary, let's review some of the highlights. So transformational leadership is comprised of idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individual consideration. And it takes a mission-driven approach that inspires followers to exceed performance expectations and themselves become leaders. It's a component of the magnet model, and it aligns with the high-performance work practices. Magnet organizations have exemplary outcomes and multiple distinguishing characteristics. Magnet culture, sometimes a elusive concept, is really underpinned by an environment of quality and safety, nursing excellence, and innovation. To develop magnet culture, the transformational leader should focus on creating a healthy work environment that's safe, empowering, and satisfying. Transformational leaders should also develop the 5 sub-skills of the practice environment scale. Some practical examples were provided, such as creation under maintenance of the Magnet Steering Committee, celebration of nurses year-round, creating opportunity and expectation for lifelong learning and development, and of course ensuring organizational agility in response to changes. I can't stress that one enough. The executive leader, we learned, is readily recognized as transformational and should spend their time ensuring that high-performance work practices are alive and well within their nursing services. The trusting triad between the executive leader, the nurse manager, and the staff helped us identify the importance of developing the nurse manager as a transformational leader. Again, we know that the literature tells us they're not as readily recognized as being transformational, which means that's a place to spend some time. Nurse managers are most influential on and ideally positioned to impact the front line. They impact outcomes, satisfaction, and even the emotional experiences of their employees. With transformational leadership alive and at work in your organization, you can be assured that you will elevate to leadership roles within the ranks, and in turn, they will give back to the organization. The relationship through transformational leadership is very much reciprocal in nature. So I hope that you enjoyed this session. On behalf of the team at HealthLinx, we wish you the very best in your personal and organizational journey towards excellence. So again, thank you for joining us today. I hope you found this information useful. Wish you the best of luck on your magnet journey or your journey, your personal journey to becoming a transformational leader. We actually have some time left here. It's about 1:46 on my clock to take some questions or comments. Adam, do we have anything to review?
We do. Thanks again, Kristen. That was a great presentation, a lot of information there for everybody. The first question that we did receive is in relation to the practice environment scale. Wanted to know if you could provide some more information about this and where did it come from?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. So the 5 subscales of the practice environment scale came from the Nursing Work Index as a method to measure the practice environment in 16 magnet hospitals actually back in the 1980s. The psychometric properties were established for the subscales, and it's really a reliable and valid tool. As I mentioned, it's really widely used in the nursing literature, but it was born from looking at magnet hospital outcomes as compared and characteristics of the practice environment as compared to non-magnet outcomes and characteristics of the environment.
Okay, great. Thanks. Well, that looks like all the questions we've received so far today. If anybody has any other questions or something comes to mind, you still have some time to answer the question and answer panel there in your GoToWebinar player. Even if we don't address it today, we'll still be able to follow up with you later about that as well. So for some closing notes, just to wrap things up today, please be sure to look for a follow-up email that will alert you to the recording of today's event. We'll send that over to you shortly here. We'll have the recording as well as the slides from today available there for you to download. We do encourage you to please share this valuable resource with your colleagues and to register for our next webinar in this series, which will feature impacting the emergency department's margin through acute care. The information about this upcoming webinar will be included in our March newsletter, so if you have not yet had a chance to subscribe to our newsletter, please do so by visiting healthlinx.com, and also be sure to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. If you have any questions regarding HealthLinx solutions or to inquire about partnering with us for your magnet journey, please contact Kelly Ruggiero. Her contact information is available on the screen now, and also if you download the slides, you'll have them there too. On behalf of Kristen Whitehead, as well as the entire team at HealthLinx, thank you again for joining us and taking the time to view our presentation. Have a great day.